Alright guys, so I'm going to try to explain socialism in a very short amount of time. If you know anything about it, it's a very broad concept. Just curious, how many of you think you have a good grasp of what socialism is? Raise your hand. Since you're brave, let me hear something you know about socialism. Just something you associate with socialism.
Like classes.
What about it? What about classes?
Or feudal system.
Feudal system? So it kind of rose out of the feudal system. Feudal system led to different separation of classes and things. Socialism is actually going for the opposite. It's like a classless society. We'll talk a little bit about that. So, American education, public education, and socialism. Is there anything you guys can think of that, like how this would connect?
Universal education.
Universal education, yeah. That's definitely part of it. So one point, it's provided to everybody, right? So this is one of the big aspects of socialism, is providing like basic needs like education. So in this case, education is provided to everybody. So we think of our society as like more of a capitalist, free market type society. But American public education is one aspect of the United States that's more of like a socialist type thing. And we're obviously not even anywhere close to socialism, but this is one thing that's similar. And then the national curriculum standards. So right now, I know you guys don't, since you're a private school, you don't necessarily know about this, but Common Core is something that's for public education, trying to nationalize these standards. So that's another aspect of socialism. What's another program that we have in the United States or that's coming up that you can connect to socialism? That's kind of got aspects of socialism. What's that? Yeah, healthcare. So I'm trying to provide healthcare to everybody. And you'll kind of see why that's the case as we go through this. Foundations of socialism. I don't know why these are out of order. But utopia. Have you guys heard of utopia? So utopia kind of has some basis for socialism. So like I said, classless society, and then like shared property, so owning land collectively rather than private. And then you get into the 1700s, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, he started he's kind of like one of the reasons the French Revolution happened. But he said, "You're lost if you forget that the earth belongs to no one and that its fruits are for all." This is like a basic idea for socialism. So it's something that was inspiring to future socialists, and it eventually inspired the French Revolution. Before the French Revolution, we have the Industrial Revolution. This kind of created capitalism. So before this, we had things like the feudal system, we had merchants and things, but we didn't really have capitalism until the Industrial Revolution. So you can't have capitalism without capital, obviously. And you get mechanization, industrialization. So this kind of separates people into classes. You have the capitalists or the bourgeoisie, and then the working class, which is the proletariats. So you get this separation. So you have the wealthy at the top, then you have the working class that barely makes enough to survive. And so it's kind of raising questions for people, like making them think, is this really the right way to go? Where you have all these people that are suffering and then a very small amount of people that are actually, benefiting from this. And so after Jean-Jacques Rousseau and kind of the start of the Industrial Revolution, you get the French Revolution. Have you guys learned about this yet? French Revolution? Yes. Yeah, so you probably know a lot about this. You have the three classes, the clergy, which is like the higher up, and then the nobility, and then the rest of France. And so out of the French Revolution, you get things like nationalism, liberalism, as Alicia talked about, and then you also get socialism. So this is a pretty new idea. So I just included some pictures to kind of give you an idea. These are working class people from the Industrial Revolution, and then this is just a picture kind of showing you the French Revolution. But you guys know a lot about that. Basics of socialism. So rather than having different individuals or groups of individuals owning industry, In socialism, you have the government controlling all of that. So the government controls the means of production. They decide who gets what, where those goods go. And so it kind of levels the playing field. And then when you take out competition, in their mind, in a socialist mind, that also levels the playing field. So when you don't have free market, everyone, you can control everything. So it's a lot about control. And then once again, going back to our original point, classless society. So you don't want different classes. You want everyone to be on the same level. And then collective ownership of land. So not one person is going to own a lot of land. It's kind of like the group owns a lot of land. That goes back to well before, like the beginnings of civilization, when you all just share the land. So one thing that's interesting about socialism, the reason it's so hard to just define for you guys in 10 minutes is because there's so many different types of socialism. And since Thomas More and Jean-Jacques Rousseau came up with these ideas, all these different denominations or types of socialism have come out of that. So the first one, utopian socialism, is kind of like thinking in ideals, like an ideal world. You don't have to have like an overthrow of the bourgeoisie. It kind of just happens through reform and things like that. Marxist socialism, you guys have heard of Karl Marx. So this is a more revolutionary socialism where there needs to be like military action. You got to overthrow the capitalists and take over that way. And so you don't, in this system, you don't really get equality until you have some sort of violent overthrow. This next one's kind of surprising. Christian socialism. Did any of you guys know that there's a Christian socialism? So it's based on the teachings of Jesus. I'm sure you guys have heard of the Sermon on the Mount, since this is a Christian school. So he taught things like the meek will inherit the earth, and blessed be the poor, and things like that. So Christian socialists kind of take from that and expand on it and make it work for socialism. And then lastly, I put, and so on, just because there's so many interpretations of socialism. Out of socialism, you get communism, which oftentimes people associate the two, which is kind of true. So communism came out of socialism, but they certainly aren't synonyms. So they're not the same thing. So Vladimir Lenin kind of took Marx's teachings and changed them a little bit to make it into his own communism. And then this last part, I just wanted to kind of connect it to you guys personally. Socialism in Oklahoma. So Oklahoma, you guys know, is a pretty conservative Republican state. Well, at the time of our founding, so at the time of statehood, early 1900s, we actually had the highest number of socialists per capita of any state in the country. Does that surprise anybody? Do you know why that might be? So what type of, what was going on economically in Oklahoma at that time? What type of work were people doing? Farming, right. So we had a lot of farmers. A lot of these farmers are trying to fight for, against the big landowners. So you have all these major landowners that have commercial farming. They're trying to fight that and get it back in the hands of the small farmers. So that's kind of where, that's why the Socialist Party took off in Oklahoma. And then I added this about the gubernatorial race in 1914, just because it's kind of interesting. So a socialist candidate actually won 20% of the vote in 1914. And so that's all I have for you guys. I just wanted to show you that. So yeah, that's it.